Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode of Griot of the Diaspora. I'm your host, Nakaira G, and today we have a guest here by the name of Yazid Muhammad, and we are going to be talking about living in Ghana, working in Ghana, and the benefits of citizenship. So, welcome on, Yazid.
Thank you very much for having me.
So there, in the conversation of the gentrification, there is the conversation about rent prices and things like that. Now that so many of us are living there, and we're seeing like the real estate kind of go up. People are selling houses for like $500,000 and up, or there's like the $100,000, $200,000 houses that are now very popular, both amongst the Ghanaian landlords and as well as with diaspora communities. And so I guess there's like a pro and con, or maybe there is a class discussion that maybe we haven't necessarily really had as a diaspora community in Ghana in terms of like, what is the general price that we all can be okay with? Because for some people, I'm from California, so and I'm from Compton. So it's like a $500,000 house is normal, right? But should that be normal in Ghana? So how do you feel about that concept that there is a gentrification happening in the real estate or housing sector that people have attributed being caused by solely by Black Americans?
Okay, well, let me say that I'm from Virginia, Virginia Beach, the Tidewater area, and $500,000 is, I think, about the cost of a nice house. You know, maybe three, four bedrooms, two car garage, something like that. That's typical. At least the time I was there, I've been in Ghana for 16 years straight. I've been back to the U.S. So 16 years, but fine. And people come with their own mind about how they see their lives in Ghana. You have, and I've, as a consultant, I've talked to people and they say uh, they want a condo and they want a condo, a nice condo, and they would wish to live in East Legon, certain particular areas that are known for, let's say, where the ministers live or where the embassies are located. These are very expensive areas, you know, and to me, I will rate your seriousness about living in Ghana if you choose to live there. If you, not that you are buying, but maybe you're choosing to rent for that area, because long term you can't stay there. You can't afford. It's not economical to be paying $80 a day to be living anywhere. So especially if you're not a retired person earning, $6,000 a month or $4,000 a month living in Ghana, that's different economic status altogether. But there's a certain, let's say, group of us. I came when I was 35. I didn't come with a pension, and I may not get it. I probably won't get a pension, because I've been here so long. But these things are a part of the reality check when you try to make a life here, right? So some people also, when they want to build, is another aspect of it. They want to build a Nigerian movie house, and they run into challenges trying to complete it. They really run into challenges trying to complete these mansions. And a lot of this is why you across Ghana you see a lot of unfinished buildings because people start out with unrealistic uh, goals, and a lot of us come into Ghana with unrealistic expectations and goals. In my personal opinion, so when people are trying to say African Americans specifically are affecting the economy, true, we are affecting the economy. We have been a lifeline into the economy. Many of us, when you come, we take Uber, we party at night, we party at during the day. The restaurants and these other Uber Eats and all these other things maybe that weren't there are now there. You know what I'm saying? Those things weren't there in 2000, 2015, 2014. Those things were not available, accessible. So those things came just, let's say, after year of return, or let's say after COVID. After COVID, those things became more common, and I've never used those things. But and I don't live in the city. Let me say that also. I live in about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of the city. If you choose to live in the capital city, one thing you should know is that it's going to cost more. And when the typical Ghanaian brother or sister working a job, maybe they make 10,000 CDs or less a month. You know, if you make 10,000 CDs, if you're on the upper side of things, you know, you may be considered upper middle class before you get to the business people who are making, who knows, you know, how they count, how they make their money, you know, how they make their money, but or where they're making their money at, who knows. But when you're talking about the working class people, work for the government, work for, have their own shops and these other type of things, those are them I would in my estimation or guesstimation, maybe they're making 10,000, 12,000, depending on who they work for, if they have a good job. Other than that, they're making somewhere around 4,000 less, you know. And I think I'm giving it on the upper end of that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people don't have those type of jobs. You know, a lot of people really just work hand to mouth. You know what I'm saying? So maybe they're making 2,000 CDs a month. Is it fair for them to compare themselves to somebody who comes here on vacation on credit card? You know, on credit cards. You know what I'm saying? And they are paying them credit cards off. And people, I'm sure they are maxing them joints out. You know, trying to have a good time in the 2 weeks or 3 weeks that they're here. You know what I mean? Or there's somebody that has planned. I got $5,000. I got 10,000. I'm going to have a good time. I'm back in Africa, and I want to live like, I want to be treated like a queen or a king. You know what I mean? And they have that mind. But if you really want to have sustainable repatriation, you can't eat out at a restaurant. You can't take Uber every day. You know, you're gonna have to adjust yourself, adjust your diet. There's so many things that you're going to be adjusting yourself to, so that you can maybe fulfill the vision that you have for yourself and living outside of the United States. But it's not practical to think that you can live in a place where the rent is being charged in dollars.